Now, today we'll take a closer look at the programs and plans of the once indisputable alternative in Nigerian politics, the Social Democratic Party, or SDP. The SDP is the oldest of all the existing political parties in Nigeria, and for its supporters, it still embodies the spirit and the hope of a third political force in this country. And so, as decision day approaches, the party, like all the others, is hitting the hustings hard, traversing the nation. So many issues that it's trying to get on top of in this Africa's biggest and most expensive ballot: security, corruption, unemployment, poverty, women, the youth, fears of manipulation and rigging, vote buying, perhaps even body bags. So how is it all coming together for the SDP? Well, for more on this, I'm joined now in the studio by the presidential candidate of the Social Democratic Party, Prince Adewole Adebayo. Thank you very much indeed for coming
Charles.
in.
Pleasure
So,
to be here.
a grueling 5-month campaign period lies ahead. How's it going so far, emotionally and psychologically for you?
Well, we look forward to it. We're like those kids in the eagles, the flying eagles or eaglets, going to the World Cup for the first time. They go with happiness, enthusiasm. They're not jaded. They're not tired.
Well, it's just the beginning. You've got
just
5
beginning,
months.
and we're trying our best to show what we have, and we'll be looking for this opportunity to let Nigerians know that there is hope and there are alternatives, and you don't have to box into a corner. So that's to get Nigeria out of the horn of the dilemma. That's basically what we're trying to do. So we're happy to be on the field.
Well, we're going to hear how you're planning to do some of that. But what are the things that are the top of the pecking order in that campaign for you? What are the priorities?
Well, the most important thing is to have a connection with the people. And the first part, which is now concluding, was a listening tour to know what Nigerians think of the country, if they still have hope in the country, whether they believe in the political system, whether they believe in our party, whether they believe in my candidature. We've done that from June 9 to now, and we've seen that people are willing to listen, both old and young, different people, and across party lines, even people who are not in our party. They're showing some, should I say, ecumenical spirit to try to listen, because the problems look real to them, and for many, they can't find the solution within the prism of their own political party. So we've done that. So the next thing we need to do is to communicate to the people, to have a commonality of interpretation, because when people don't believe what the politician believes, the politician is having a monologue as such. So we've come to an understanding now that the people of Nigeria agree with us that we need to end poverty. That's a matter of national emergency, and we need to end insecurity as quickly as possible. So those two planks on which we run. Of course, there are plans and programs and policies that we need to formulate to be able to achieve these broad objectives. So that's basically the priority for us.
And when you assess what you're doing in that regard, compared with the other presidential candidates, how is your campaign looking in terms of strategy and so on?
Well, we are on course. We are lucky in the Social Democratic Party that we don't have distractions, and we've not brought any funny stories to the public. So people listen to us. When we speak to the issues, we speak on policies. We don't have court dramas, we don't have factional dramas, we don't have all of those things. We don't have any post-convention issues to manage.
But you've had dissents, though, inside the party.
No, there were dissents, historical dissents, and you will notice that on the 29th of September in Lagos, the Shonibare camp and the other camp came together and said, let's bury all of that. Let's present Prince Adewole Adebayo to the Nigerian people. Let's present the other candidates to the Nigerian people. Let's tell them about abolition of poverty, farewell to poverty and insecurity. So those issues are not the dominant issues in the party. So where 2 or 3 SDP members are gathered, those issues don't come up. Well, the issues that come up are come to my constituency, come and campaign, and things like that. Someone like Senator Ikeina, who was supposed to be the presidential candidate of the other side, he's been bugging my phone all the time, saying, I have people for you here, you need to come and talk to them, and things like that. So this is the spirit this of the moment. This is what we are doing. And for us, I think the 5 months are just barely enough to be able to reconcile the people, because there's a general rift between the Nigerian electorate and the political class. And whether we like it or not, we are now part of the political class. And we need to be able to bridge that rift, to let the people know that there is a section of the political class that is not for funny dramas and scandals, that's actually thinking about these issues, has some gravitas, that have what Adewole used to talk about, that he used to burn the midnight oil, thinking about Nigerian issues when other people might be otherwise spending their nights carousing around. So this is what we're trying to make, that distinction, because until that distinction is made, and we remove the broad brush that the electorate has been using against the political people or politicians, if we don't make that distinction, the message might not get to the core of where it needs to get to.
Right. So are you more confident today than you were before the campaigns began in your quest for the presidency, or are you less confident? I mean, there's a heck of a lot of work to do, isn't there?
I'm more confident because what I used to do before was like singing solo all around. Now, people are now singing choruses in response, the kind of encouragement you get. Well, if you are a priest, you say, the Lord be with you, and they say, also unto you. So I'm beginning to get that response, and I'm beginning to see many people fine-tuning our message, making it clearer, arguing about the details among themselves. So it's resonating. I had concerns that because of this narrative that was in the media, where in any discussion about 2023, some 4 pictures come up magically and they keep coming. I thought that people were actually distracted with that, but I found out that they are not. That's number one. Number two, I also noticed that the people who are supposed to be at the top are getting jittery about the messaging. They are also going around and reacting to it and try to formulate something which, whether they understand it or not, but as a response to what we are saying. So the message is getting to the people. The vast field is what is the challenge. It's like what is written in the scripture, that the harvest is plentiful, but you need a lot of workers. So we are trying to get more people to leave what they are doing. Many were shocked that I could leave thriving law practice, global law practice, and do this. And now I'm having people who are pharmacists, doctors, engineers, farmers, also volunteering and joining. People who were retirement before, now coming back to join. So it makes me happy, and we're getting a lot of invitations to places that we never thought we could get, places that you don't expect cable news to reach. You don't expect the popular tabloids to reach. People are calling us from those places. We're being called by large groups, but more rewardingly, we're being called by tiny groups of people.
Yeah, but why is that? I mean, what would you say are the cardinal issues that you really stand for, by which the Nigerian people can identify you apart from the other politicians?
One, it starts with the truth, and being able to say the truth very clearly and very simply, being at home with the truth naturally. You will see that in the country now, even the NNPC, which was supposed to be annoyed by me blowing the whistle that we were losing 80% of our crude, they were hiding and jiving, but now they are coming out. So the whole of Nigeria knows that we have made a contribution. We've told Nigerian people where the leakage is in our revenue. So this 19.73 trillion that has a lot of holes in it, more than half of it is accounted for by what we've discovered, that NNPC would not have come out to acknowledge, and they haven't even touched the substance of it, that a whole pipeline pumping millions of barrels have been secretly pumping and selling.
Yes, so that was an
years.
Astonishing story, wasn't it?
Yeah, but it was. It's not astonishing to us because we were talking about it. It's just a vindication, a sad vindication of what I started my campaign with, to say, don't despair about your fiscal situation. It is engineered by a deliberate act of sabotage and criminality. So don't give us a false premise on which to plan our economy. And that if you let people like us come to power, that will not happen. And automatically, your fiscal gap will be breached. That's number one. Number two issue that people are talking about is the fact that we are the only party committed to implementing Chapter 2 of the Constitution, fundamental objectives and directive principles of state policy. It's very important because once you adopt that, 90% of the malfeasance in government will disappear. Most of those things causing tension in government will disappear. Most of these things causing failure in fiscal responsibility, failure in creating economic equity, failure in management of priorities, and low investment in the social sector. All of those things will go away if once you adopt that. The third issue is our commitment to abolish poverty, no matter what, as a matter of national emergency. We cannot have any legitimate excuse to end the term of a presidency without giving poverty a final blow. And we can do that based on programs for which are easily provisioned, but they refuse to provision them because there is a belief among the political class and the ruling classes of Nigeria that if you invest in the poor, that money is lost to them. So you rather spend that money on paying for subsidy and other services.
Well, a lot of people would question the point you're making of abolishing poverty. I mean, you could certainly dramatically reduce poverty.
Why do you want to compromise?
But there are so many ways in which people become poor, and it's very difficult to say that you can completely abolish poverty. Nevertheless,
we should be able to abolish poverty because
I think that's a very optimistic way of looking at it.
We need to abolish poverty. Why? Because poverty is not natural. Here, you cannot say that Saudi Arabia has not abolished poverty or Kuwait has not abolished poverty. So it is possible for us to abolish poverty. There are people in other economic climes, geopolitical climes, who can only aim as far as reducing because they don't have the resources. But we have the resources and we have a manageable landscape where every portion of our land is useful. Well, and we've had many years of structural investment, even before we became Nigeria, in managing poverty. It will surprise you that as far back as 300 years ago, you will not find a hungry man in Onitsha.
Well, you weren't around 300 years
ago. No, because there is enough research. There are colonial records. The Portuguese, when they arrived, described the status in which they met us.
But that's a limited description, so let's not get
what I'm bringing out of that is that if it was possible before oil, before education, before this basic infrastructure, to have societies in our environment that because of the richness of the soil, because of the fact that we have abundance, equatorial sunshine, we have all these resources, we have a healthy population, we are able to abolish poverty.
Yeah, I'm not arguing with you about the idea. I think it's a very noble idea and something to pursue. But I'm just concerned about the use of the term abolish as opposed to dramatically reduce. But that's
because I don't want to set a target where, in our situation, it will be a self-sabotage to say you just want to reduce. You just abolish. Same thing with illiteracy.
You dramatically reduce.
No, why don't you just get rid of it?
That's why we usually say 99.9%, and you leave a margin of error.
I think.
You see what I mean?
I think aspirationally, it's more important to set a target to abolish, because you are going to have sustainable goals once you want to abolish it. Because remember, it's a periodic photograph. So you could have, like, we don't want to be in the situation of the Greek. We could have the richest country at one point in time, Macedonia, and all of that. And now you have a basket case in Greece. So you want to say you want to abolish so that you have a sustainable framework.
Let's move away from that, because there are lots of other things to talk about. I mean, you've talked about the way that people have been responding to you. Yes. In the course of this campaign, are you finding a changed electorate, a more enlightened public who want to hear about your policy proposals and vision and ideas, or is there still, do you detect still a strong money element that's associated with campaigns, and the expectation is still that you will give them money?
No, I think basically money is not the major problem. The major problem is belief. There has been a climate of cynicism. So if you are a perfectly good person, the day you join politics, even your own family members start to suspect when they ask you what time is it, and you check your watch, they just assume he's a politician now, let's cross-check. So that is the problem that one faces. And so once they see that you still remain your consistent self, you speak the truth, you don't exaggerate issues, you don't take advantage of issues, you don't deceive people, you don't exaggerate your own nature.
What you can do.
You can do.
Like saying, for instance, that you'll abolish poverty.
No, that one we must do it. We had a deal to do it, and we're going to do
well,
it.
let's not get bogged down.
Yeah, so basically, once they see that you walk the talk, you have the plan for what you intend to do, and you're consistent, and you can admit difficulties when there are, so they start to develop a new interest.
Right.
I think generally Nigerians they love the country, but they don't love the politicians.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment.
Yeah, so basically we now try to renew the love by showing to the people that we are in it for their sake.
Right.
So
but you know, of course, that part of campaigning is in many ways not just to inform and enlighten people on your manifesto and plans for them, etc., but to find interesting and entertaining ways to do that. I mean, aren't you concerned that you could lose voters if your campaign is perceived to be lackluster and unexciting, and perhaps you need to up your passion level, turn up the volume, and give people a bit of euphoria?
There are enough comedians on the other side. And I think people are finding it less amusing.
Yeah, but people can at least dream of how different life could be under you, and if you create that kind of environment, that's a feel-good one. That's part of what campaigns are
I think
about.
number one, people first want reality. They want a politician who is living in Nigeria mentally, who knows that this person I'm talking to is out of job, and understand the implications.
Yeah, but you're not out of a job.
Yeah,
but you're a very successful lawyer.
Yeah, but
you're an entrepreneur. You've
yes.
made considerable amounts of money.
Yes.
So you can't really claim that you're on the same level as somebody who's, struggling as on the streets of Nigeria hawking stuff.
No, you can do that by way of empathy. First, the leader needs to have a situational awareness, to know who you are dealing with. You have to be like a medical doctor. He's not sick, but he knows what it means to have malaria.
Yeah, but all the other politicians can claim the same thing.
No, they've been claiming and failing to show. I'm talking of not what you claim, but what people perceive when you're talking to them. That you understand where they are, you have respect for their situation, and you understand how to dig them out of the ditch where they are. And once they see that, then you could occasionally become colorful, but they need to first know that this is not another court jester in the neighborhood. Then this is the person who is...
So basically anyone coming to your campaign can forget about any fun. They're going to be sitting there, and you're going to...
There will be fun at the end when we have already found a solution to the problem. I think basically I'd rather give you hope than a distraction.
Yeah, well,
so if you
a
have
combination of hope and a bit of passion might be what
as long as the passion
to get the
I
get you over the
agree
line.
with you to the extent that as long as the passion does not remove the sense of gravitas of what is at stake, because
No, absolutely.
this is a country in which we just heard that 23 people, the last set of those who have been in captivity for half a year, they're just coming out. So for their families and friends and for the neighbors, there's nothing funny about this.
Yeah, but you have to also remember that even though, and I agree with you, that Nigeria is in the throes of a very difficult time,
Yes.
people in this country have actually at different points been considered to be the happiest people in the world. So that feel-good factor is important. But let's not get
I just want to
down
make
in
sure
it.
that it's based on the substance.
I
now.
understand that.
Yes.
But what are the things that concern you about the campaign and this election now that the process is underway?
What concerns me, dare say, is that the people are yearning for information and they may not be getting a lot of it. The people are yearning for solutions, they may not be getting enough of it. And I will appeal that the media should be more open and do the kind of thing you are doing now to let people know what's going on, so that it's not just a one-sided story. Because people, it will be a tragedy in a country if people don't rely on their media for information. They have to scout around. So the media needs to reflect the field, needs to let people have a very clear picture.
So you need more interviews.
More interview, more exposure, and less of trying to jump to conclusions. I mean, I don't get too irritated by all these pictures, four guys that keep being rotated up and down. I believe that we are going behind that, but it's important that this short period of 5 months, that people, when they are going to
get as much information as
yes, when they are going to the poll
about parties like
yes,
yours,
they need to understand this is the reason why I'm voting for this party, this is why I'm rejecting these other parties, and these are the issues, so that they can feel responsible for the government.
That's fair enough. Now, I mean, if it, because the scenario at the moment looks like it'll be a very close race. I don't want to mention the 4 because I can see that gets your goat, but let's talk about more than 4 across the spectrum of political parties. I mean, if it came to it, would you go into an alliance with one or more of the other parties? If so, which would it be?
Well, you know, as one of the, if it goes first, it will not be a close poll. People just think it will be. From my field operation, people are uniformly thinking along the same line. So I don't think the poll will be that close. But if it turns out to be close, I would want to talk to parties to support the SDP.
But are there any that you see that are ideologically, or at least to some extent, align with your way of thinking?
Yeah, for example, I know Malik Ado Ibrahim, were kind of aligned.
Yeah, he's a brilliant man. He's been sitting here.
Yeah,
like so you, he's a pretty intelligent
I just look at your shows. Anybody who sits with you, I want to work with them. so
I like that.
So then you have Dumebi Kachiku. We're talking. I've been talking with Osakwe of recent. I'm talking with Chowore. He has some strong views about certain things, and I think he's right on those things. So we're talking across board to try to get more people in. The people we may consider last, except they wind down and try to come to us to learn how to be people's representative. We will not talk to the first 2, you know, those who have ruled before, because we assume that despite what they say, they've had enough time to demonstrate who they are, and there's no point closing our eyes to the evidence. And in recent time, the way they're behaving hasn't shown to us that they've learned anything new or they want to do anything new. So for that reason, we are talking among ourselves even before it gets to the point where the polls are maybe hung or something like that. But the more important thing is to allow every person to show their hand, because in the course of the campaign, even someone you think you know, in the heat of
that's a good point.
In the fog of war, in the heat of some interrogation, they will let out something they've been hiding. So you don't want to adopt somebody today and then 2 months time and say, well, you know what, I changed my mind. So you want that to go on.
Well, I want to thank you very much indeed. It's been jolly interesting talking with you, and I have certainly learnt a lot about you and your party. Thank you for taking the time. Prince Adewole Adebayo is the presidential candidate of the Social Democratic Party. Thank you ever
Thank
so
you, Charles. It's a pleasure.